Hey, Jason, good morning.
Good morning, sir. How are you doing?
Good. I walked in here and you were like all emotional and you're like, we got to talk about this.
Yeah, I want to get into a little bit about more of a practical short episode about people working. And I know we've had a huge shift with people working at home now, and
A lot of that remote work.
Yeah, and people are making decisions based off of COVID, and businesses are, and there are some people that are deciding to switch careers.
Yeah. Now that they've removed themselves from the environment of the office,
Yes.
it almost allows them a more macro view of like what was going on.
Yes.
So they're like, yikes.
Yeah.
How have I been doing that for so long? And that's typically the question. They're like, why have I been in the office if I could have done all this here? Right?
Yes.
Or that's not even the right fit for me.
Right.
I'm finding that I enjoy other things.
Yeah, and we talk. We're going to be talking today on our Tartle episode, and we encourage everybody to go sign up. If you want more of a business side of things, you can sign up at TCast.
Yeah.
is our sponsor, Tartle's.
And you can learn about how
podcast.
data is solving the world's problems.
Speaking of that, but it was interesting, and we'll be talking about that. Is the only investment strategy that made 20% was the REIT.
The real estate investment trust for data centers.
Yeah, exactly.
Incredible.
I thought that was interesting that what's happening now is they're taking buildings that have been basically companies that have abandoned buildings.
Yeah.
For the sake of everybody working at home, and then they're just turning them into data centers.
Yeah. I don't want to get into it too much, but I think it's just kind of, I think it's a wasted investment because they're centralized data centers. Why would you start to invest so much in data centers right now as a quick fix when you could just adopt a decentralized model of like blockchain?
Yes.
Or other like things called like DigitalOcean. There's no reason for you to be having these centralized systems. You should rely on the processing power of every single smartphone, every single home computer, all those other things. The data centers are just ridiculous.
Or if they wanted to, I don't understand why they don't go underground and build like.
I've been talking about
tunnels.
this. So the thing that you got to...
It's cool underneath there.
Yeah, and you want to be, efficient costs of storage, right? But you also need to protect it from electromagnetic pulses that may come from the sun. So large coronal mass ejections, I think they're called CMEs. Those are the things that can screw up all of our electronics here on Earth because it rips right through everything. You're like, why is your microwave like fried out a little bit? Oh, it's because we had a sun flare that hit, that launched out that magnetic power and hit the Earth. So you got to really build it in sheltered areas, like almost like a giant underground Faraday cage. If you know what that is.
Yeah. I know what that is. Yeah.
I don't know. I just think it's strange that they take the route of continually centralizing things when the world becomes inherently more decentralized.
Decentralized, yeah. I think it's just a saying it's mine.
It's a quick
tangible.
It is, yeah. It's a quick Band-Aid fix.
Yeah, and yes, exactly. It'll eventually evolve into.
And speaking about like Band-Aid fixes, let's talk about with work and ripping off the Band-Aid.
Yeah, because we spend most of our lives, I would say, besides sleeping, probably working.
What's the ratio? We've talked about this. About 55% of your life you're awake.
Right.
40, maybe 45% you're actually sleeping. Your eyes are closed. What?
Yeah.
I spend almost half of my life asleep.
Yeah, and so while we're awake, I would say the majority of us are working. Mm-hmm. We may have some, a weekend off or something like that, or a day or two off or something, or we in the afternoon, we may take some time off, or in the evening we go home and we chill with our loved ones. But for the most part, majority of us for our whole lives are working.
Yeah.
To this point of where we're 65 or whatever, and we can retire.
Yeah. And everybody wants to retire, but the world has become, awfully efficient in a lot of things. Mm-hmm. So the relative cost of acquiring material goods has gone down a lot. I can go on Amazon and get just about all the things I need for really cheap.
Yes.
And I can shop really cheap at Trader Joe's and get all the variety of grocery products I could ever ask for. But where am I going with that? The point is that, maybe you're in a job you don't enjoy doing. You had originally made the choice for so many years to be in this job because of its pay.
Right.
At the sacrifice of truly doing what you enjoyed to do. But if you're smart about your decisions and you live efficiently outside of work, well, then you can actually change what you do with your work because it's not the sole focus of the material gain of money. You can now start to work for purpose. And you see that change with a lot of companies now. Even, for instance, our company, Tartle, it's a public benefit corp. We're here strictly and solely for the benefit of elevating people.
Right.
Right. It's not about us. And so you see a lot more purpose and mission driven companies popping up all over the place. And that's something that inherently drives a lot more value when you are spending a huge majority of your life just working when you're in the wake state.
Yeah, and I love, the Whole Foods wrote that Conscious Capitalism book, and I think that's great. And, because I think in and of its value is great. Capitalism is great, and it's built this amazing nation that we're at. But being able to take to have that shift and say, let's throw some consciousness into it.
Yeah.
And see what that looks like. And companies are doing, these newer companies. I know somebody that works at Lululemon, and amazing company. They were going through their HR and showing me all their, and like if there's an argument, like the manager, if she hears an argument on the floor, he hears an argument on the floor, they take a little time out. They can't say meditate, because with
why
is
I know dogmatic. It's not dogmatic at all. It's just a tool.
Yeah. So they say, let's take a time out. Let's we're gonna refocus. And then, they use these key words, and then whenever they have Zoom meetings now, they all take, like a minute or two to calm themselves, to relax, to close their eyes, and then they have the meeting. So it's just it's a yoga company.
Yeah, it's that, it's like almost self-help driven, right? It's what you find is that there's a lot more introspection that's happening. So when you talk about conscious capitalism is a very materialistic thing. It's all about the outside. And so when you apply, a conscious attitude to it or a conscious perspective, you're taking that introspective look to try and strike a balance between the material and the immaterial. Does this emotionally work for us? Do you
think it's the answer to our problems in America?
No.
The consciousness is not?
No. I'm not saying consciousness is the answer. I'm saying capitalism is not the answer.
Well, yeah, no, I agree that. But do you think adding consciousness onto capitalism is the answer for us?
I said it's a step closer towards the right direction, towards a more truthful direction for how we should operate. We lack sometimes the view of co-living and coexistence and co-reliance. So we are so inherently reliant on the earth, and we coexist with tons of different animals and plant species, and we're all sharing the same oxygen. So if someone pollutes somewhere halfway across the globe, I'm still going to be huffing it over here in New Mexico.
Yes.
And we lack that sort of perspective for the amount of connectedness and coexistence that we truly have between all of us. We're all living together, and every choice we make, the outcome is not just within our close little circle. It goes all the way around the earth. It's a closed unit. It's fixed.
Right.
So everything you do has to affect everything else.
Yeah, it's like galvanized pipes. That's always amazed me. Like if you buy them in the United States, it's triple the price. But they're using galvanized pipes in lots of construction everywhere. And in the United States, the practice is done more humane. So you can buy the galvanized pipe that's from like Thailand and those different plaplaces, and now you have little kids
putting the stuff together.
And galvanized dipping.
A lot of the factories in India, especially like steel factories, or what are they, foundries? A lot of the guys, they're not wearing shoes. You're in a foundry with like liquid metal flying around.
Right.
And they're still using pails to dig holes and move stuff. It's insane. But the idea is that when you look at it from a more conscious perspective of where the material or the product or service is being sourced from.
That's what I wanted to get at right there.
Where it's being sourced from is, it's going to have a surcharge on it now, because, we pay, now you have to pay more to make sure that this comes from, a tested, vetted line where people are being abused.
Starbucks is doing that.
It's healthy and safe
with their coffee farmers.
Patagonia does it with the cleanest line.
Right.
And and you pay more for it.
Right.
But the value in that is that you feel better as a consumer, knowing that me living in this co-living, coexisting world with all these other people, that I'm making a better choice. I have the ability to pay more,
right? And
I should pay more for this product because it's beneficial to those other people that might be out of sight, out of mind, but it is affecting their lives.
Yeah, that's why I wanted to get it. Like I wanted to put a pinpoint tack on what you were saying about us being in a closed system.
Yeah,
and how it trickles down to the products and things that we purchase.
Yeah, what's that? that old statement, like the butterfly effect.
Mm-hmm.
Like, butterfly can flap its wings and create a hurricane. Well, every thought you have can also have very detrimental effects.
Mm-hmm.
Let's just run a little hypothetical storyline real quick. I have a series of negative thoughts in my head. Okay? And then I go into a group setting and I'm distraught. And those thoughts, I then begin to share them with the group setting in some sort of commiserate way, or I'm trying to pass off the responsibility, and it aggravates those people. And maybe it's something that's of a political sense. And then those people talk about their experience with their network of people that sits outside of just interacting with me. And those people could be anywhere across the globe. And if they bring up something political, it could trigger someone's mindset, and that could cause an issue from anything from terrorism to who knows what have you.
Right.
So you don't realize that all of your thoughts too create our world. It's not just the butterfly effect creating a hurricane. It can also be the effect of how we're thinking defines how we coexist and live and destroy this world that is around us. We don't realize that this closed system, it truly comes back around at some time. It may be in a week, maybe in a day, maybe in 10 years, but it has to come back around. It's a circle.
It's and we've talked about this, it's the creational law of cause and effect.
It is cause and effect. And that is it to its greatest extent. But
there's a time lapse. There can be a time lapse to that.
And we all tend to think, and there is a time lapse to it. And we all tend to think that just because it's our thought, it has no effect on anything. I didn't actually do it. Well, it has a great effect on many things, especially with those conscious patterns actually coming out there in that energetic signature. People know when someone is in a bad mood, walks into a room. So having those thoughts actually disrupts everything around you. You can't feel those loving, harmonious, equalized, peaceful thoughts that you need to have that are actually beneficial to the rest of the planet. Yeah, so if you go into a job, just to take this one step further,
right,
and you feel shitty every single day,
you're teeing me up.
If you're not enjoying what you do, and it just brings about this deep, like, aggression, discomfort, lack of harmony within yourself, you're keeping that in the workplace. You're putting that into the product and service you're working with, the people you interact with at the job, and outside of it when you leave work. Think about that.
Yeah, so I want to get into how we can fix this and how we can help someone by teaching them, because I think a lot of the things that we teach, that we put out there, can be more macro. And so sometimes I like to kind of get real practical. Mm-hmm. So I want to dive into this. And I took this from, there's a book, Zone of Genius, and they talked about kind of how to narrow down what you want to do for work.
Yeah.
And maybe you love your job, but you're so, and I've experienced this as a leader, maybe you love your job, but you're so caught up in the day-to-day activities that you're not operating in your zone of genius.
Yeah, maybe you're just so burdened by things from inefficient workflows that it's taking away from why you originally joined that business, that company, for whatever its values might be.
Yeah, and for me, operating in a zone of genius is allowing myself to be fully creative, and then allowing myself to be able to, I know how my brain thinks, and I like to strategize. I like to make sure that things are being executed. And so whenever there's groups of teams of people and they're operating at high efficiency and they're all happy and things are getting done and there's hundreds of tasks getting checked off, then I can look at that, and that's where I can, and then I find holes, and then I look and see exactly where those type of things is where I'm in my zone of genius for me.
Yeah.
It may be different for other people.
But that zone that you speak of, that place of being creative.
Right.
Because
yeah, let's delve into there.
Yeah, genius is that creativity, but that requires that state of peace and equalizedness where you're calm in your environment and everything that's happening and interacting with you, so that you can let that genius of information, that stream of life, flow through you.
That creative,
that thing energy that actually enlivens you and feels good, that creational energy, that will play into everything else. The thing is, we're blocking it, not letting it flow at work, right? Because we're so inundated with all these other things that are happening. So a practical way to get to that is to recognize the things that are stopping that flow. What are the things that aren't working in that workflow? Are you taking on more at work that you shouldn't be taking on beyond your job description? And most people tend to do that because they think I need to be the martyr, right? Or I need to take this on because I feel bad for others. But you're only just damaging yourself by taking on the responsibility of others when they need to have that responsibility, right? You're overstepping that bound, and that's creating a hindrance on you to be the most creative person possible. Or you can even be creative in saying, okay, look how these things are negatively affecting me in my workspace. How can I take those and turn those into a positive environment? How do I take that and put it into a positive learning mode from these negative occurrences so that I can then push myself again towards that creative center? So anything negative that may possibly come in, I can just retune it and then go back to my creative self. How do I create that environment?
And I think of getting a pen and paper out and writing those down. Say, what are the negative aspects of my job?
And then you got to look at it and say, well, why are they negative?
Right.
Why am I perceiving them as negative?
Self-awareness, yeah.
So this self-awareness and the responsibility for your work and having these things come in, and if they're making you feel terrible, well, you need to say, well, why do I feel terrible? Why am I letting this thing make me feel terrible? These are all distractions from all that beautiful creative energy that comes, from your spirit and flows through your consciousness that you've been blocking.
So when we get into these zone of geniuses in the book, it talks about this. It has you ask these questions, and I think this goes right along with what you were just saying. What do I most love to do? I love it so much I can do it for long stretches of time without getting tired or bored.
Yeah, because that you feel you're enlivened by the work you're doing. Because you find peace, harmony, equalizeness, right? Even it could be love that you feel in what you're doing. And those are things that make us feel good to be a human being. It's a thing that charges you up all the time. When you walk into a room to see a loved one after a long time, it enlivens you, right? You feel that initial sense of joy. Well, you can consistently begin to feel that if you have that proper focus.
And what do I most love to do? I like that question. And when we get into creational energy, I like how you call it that. That's great. What do I most love to do? And I don't think a lot of people understand love and doing.
No, love is a sense of understanding. So when you say, what is it I most love to do? Well, what is it I most understand about who I truly am that truthfully aligns with creational laws and recommendations that will allow me to push away my false ego, okay, my false soul, my false psyche, and align myself with really internally what I'm supposed to be doing that's most evolutive to me and the people around me.
Because there's almost like the shadow of the eagle.
The big
I always think of Stephen Colbert.
Oh,
Remember
he
him?
always
He had
has
that
the
big
thing
eagle,
come in on the screen. Yeah, I know.
Whenever I think of the ego and this false sense of love, where I have attachment, and we did a whole with DeMello, I think, was where we
Joseph
talked about
DeMello.
love. Yeah, and that was an amazing.
It's a great book.
Yeah, that was a great book.
Way to Love.
Yes, and those two things I think are probably one of the most paramount things that we can look at whenever we see love operating in the spirit and love operating through our ego, our soul.
Yeah. You're absolutely correct. And that ego, that false ego that we have is always driving us to do material things. It's pushing us to say, oh, I got to be a part of this social ladder, or I got to have this job because it makes me look a certain way. But for those individuals, they have trouble working with that ego because that ego traps and keeps caged in like a prison the true self.
It's fear, guilt, worry, all that.
All those other things. And from that creates that world of anxiety through that false ego. And so in order to remove that world of anxiety and stop acting like, truly not acting like yourself, you have to do an internal reflection of what is it that I truly love to do? Why do I do that? What is it about me that aligns with that sort of love? And when you can go inside and find the real I,
right, and
say that that's the false I,
yes,
to break out of that prison, that real I allows for that creativity. It allows for that true love and understanding of who you are and how you can align with your best self at the deepest core. Because when you do that, you figure out, okay, this is the truth. And if I live in the truth of myself, then I'm living in the truth of these creational laws. So I'm aligning with the entire universe around me and the energy of that universe, because now I've taken the internal look to figure out the real I of who I am.
And we're chasing money, and it's so funny. Abundance comes when you're operating in creational. If you're operating in your best self and your best energy, you're going to have money.
You're always going to have money. You always have the things that you're truly going to need to survive. They can't be there. You'll be lifted through this life on a set of, to put it poetically, golden wings.
Yes.
Because you've aligned with the energy of creation, which is so potent and so giving all of the time. And when it says giving, it's not just in the material sense. It's also in the immaterial sense. You'll be constantly given truth. And if you're living in truth, you're never going to find yourself in a place you shouldn't be in. You're always going to be in a state of perfect learning all the time.
Even through a process of suffering, but you won't perceive it as suffering. You'll perceive it as a learning time.
A learning time when you find the deepest honesty of yourself.
Yes.
And if you haven't taken that introspection at work and with your job, well, then you're probably going to suffer outside of it. And that's typically where you're going to find that moment of honesty with yourself.
Yeah. And the second one here is, what work do I do that doesn't seem like work? I can do it all day long without ever feeling tired or bored.
Well, that's correct. So work is just a function of us manipulating our environment and our lives. But if you're doing something, if you change the perspective of your mind, that it's something you truly love and understand, and it brings you peace and harmony and knowledge and wisdom and truth, that's never going to feel like work, because you're always growing as a person. You're always coming to some sort of fruition, bearing that fruit, right? You've grown through the wheat chaff and you've done all that learning, and like here at the top, I can now reap all of the benefits of living in that truth.
Yeah. And for me, it's like whenever it starts feeling like work, then I know that I'm not in alignment with my genius, or my full creativity, my creational creativity.
That's right. Like even when I was designing Tartle in the early days, 5, 6 years.
Oh, there was so much shit you had to do
6
that you
years
didn't
ago.
want to do.
Yeah, there was a lot of stuff I didn't want to do. But before I got into those things that actually were the founding building blocks of the company, the design in the creative flow was me just being there and truly loving what I was doing. Mm. And that allowed that to flourish and come to something that I was like, wow, there's something here. Now I have to do the tasks that are required that I don't really want to do because it's outside of the creative stuff, but are required to actually get this off the ground so that I can move back into that creative state.
No, that makes sense.
So it's like, I'm creative, do the work to support it, okay, because it takes a long time to build that foundation. And then after that, after it's been built, you can move back into the creative state because you have all those things supporting you in that mission.
Yeah, no, I love that. Next one is, in my work, what products have the highest ratio of abundance and satisfaction to amount of time spent? Even if I do only 10 seconds or a few minutes of it. So let me say that again. In my work, what products have the highest ratio of abundance and satisfaction to the amount of time spent?
Yeah, so here, what they're saying is, if I spend a week on a project and it's completed and successful, does that bring me as much joy as truly spending 1 hour and creatively working on something that it's like, wow, I feel so good about doing that, rather than saying, oh, I put in all this time and now it's done, I can feel good about its completion? Well, that's not really looking at the product or the process. It's about, does the process and the love in that process, does that have a higher value than the amount of time you spent in just to complete whatever that task might be to deliver some sort of product? Is that clear?
Yeah, no. So I want people to understand this specifically. So when let's say we're having a board meeting, and like you said earlier, there's somebody in there that has that negative energy. They've come in.
Sure.
So you're working on this project, and you have to get it done in a week.
Yeah.
And that you thriving in the most in that ratio of abundance and satisfaction in that creation is making sure that everyone in that room understands what each of their responsibilities are in completing the project.
That's correct.
So it
may not have been the project itself,
right?
But making sure that
right.
all those people there are responsible for coming together to complete this task.
Right.
And you may find joy out of all of us coming together in our collaboration to create something. And it's not the end product, but it was just all of us coming together to work on that task and finding the love and the harmony amongst the group to do so.
See, that's part of my genius. Whenever, like, if you get a group of people into a room and they come up with amazing ideas, dude, that shit lights me up like nothing.
Oh, it's the best.
I get so excited when it's amazing when humans decide to get together and they're all operating. I mean, could you imagine 10 people in a room all operating at their best with creational laws, looking at a business or whatever it may be, an endeavor in life, and then coming to an agreement that all spirit aligns?
Yeah, that's amazing. That's just like it's a room of just so much resonant, beautiful energy. Yeah. Like that's how things should be.
Yeah.
But that requires that introspective look with our work.
I don't think a company's ever done that.
No. And you got to
Could you imagine if that would happen?
You got to take
creational momentum.
You got to take that responsibility.
Yeah.
And we've baked in the creational laws and recommendations to everything we do at Tartle.
Yes.
And whether all of the employees that work there notice it, it's okay.
Right.
Even if they do or they don't, they're always in alignment and they'll feel that happiness and truth in what they're doing. And we see that.
Yeah, that's
with their
culture,
responsiveness and the work that they put in, because we're doing things that really align with who they are at the core. And that brings great value to the work and the end product.
It does, because for me, specifically, like, you know, working as, and this is funny how you came up with my title. I love it. Chief Conscious Marketing Officer.
Right.
But me being able to operate within, I have filters now. You know, so I can say, is this going to, you know, we're looking at going into 73 countries that are English speaking here. We've, you know, on the marketing side of things, but how do we go into those countries with this ability to be able to understand the culture, and then, you know, not be offensive, you know, so I wouldn't think of those. I would say, let's push this product. If I'm a regular CMO,
I got to get in front of as many eyes as possible.
Yeah, and what's the ROI? And
what's the cost? And how many people can we convert to buy our product or use our service?
Yeah, exactly. And instead of asking these filter questions and saying, is this going to help this country or not?
Yeah, is it going to elevate them? Are we educating them properly? How are we not being coercive in getting them to use our product? It may be a slightly longer approach, but the trust that is built because you're applying so much truth in that process is something that no other company can pay any amount of money to get. But when you align with those cultures, you're saying, I've taken the time to learn about you and respect how you operate and how you all live together as a community. And we want to be a part of that community and offer a tool that has value for that community. And that's the conscious marketing.
Yes.
Okay. That's the alignment of truths and understanding this co-living, coexisting world where we're only here to unify. We're not here to separate. We're here to build those bridges.
Yeah, I love that. And I want to spend a few minutes on this last one, because I think this is going to probably be, and I encourage everyone to listen to this twice, because this one I think is going to help a lot of people. They asked the question, what is my unique ability? There's a special skill I'm gifted with. This unique ability, fully realized and put to work, can provide enormous benefits to me and any organization I serve.
That's a fantastic question.
What is my unique ability?
A lot of people think, oh, unique ability, you know, I'm fantastic at golfing, or I can do a handstand, or whatever it might be. But a large majority of the time, your unique ability may be the way you process thoughts, how you move through information, how you deal with negative occurrences. That is a unique ability. How you find peace and how you share information about your own learnings with others, how you bring people together. It's not necessarily a function, I'm good at target shooting, right? Or I'm good at racing cars, or I'm good at basketball. Yes, those are unique physical abilities, but the things that truly bind us are understanding who other people are, and that it's me and the other me, not me and you as a separate thing. You know, it's being able to look at the interconnectedness between all of us. And those are unique skills. But when you ask someone, what is your unique skill? A lot of people have a hard time defining what that unique skill is. My unique skill set is I have the ability to talk to anyone.
Yes.
Because I found deep truths within myself and who I am. And so when I have those conversations, they're extremely open. They're extremely forward. And people are like, whoa, that's a lot to take in at once. Because they're not used to that just open amount of energy and truth that's just hammering them. So it can be a little jarring when people talk to me at first. But then they're like, oh, they begin to appreciate it. And they'll come back to me and tell me, like, at first I was a little bit like, wow, this, you're a little much. But I appreciate our conversation. And, I actually want to continue to foster this relationship that we had. And I've seen this over the course of my entire life, especially as I begin to develop more and understand what my unique ability is.
Yeah, and I would agree 100%. I mean, getting to know you, your zone of genius is communication.
Yeah.
So, I mean, 100%. Like, the more you're communicating to the masses and to individuals, the more you're helping humanity.
Yeah, no, I agree. Listen, I have a good memory. I can remember just about everything I read.
Yeah.
Okay, that's a unique ability, but that's, it's beneficial to me. Okay, I'm a very good systems thinker. I can take a lot of things that are, all working together, but they're all separate, and I can understand the flow and interchangeability between all of those things. That's a skill internally for me. But something that's unifying for all of us is I have the ability to speak truth to everyone, regardless of who it is, and bring them together.
Right.
I like to wake people up. I feel that a lot of people are in a natural slumber. And I find great joy when I find people that are awake. And I see it in their eyes. I see it in their posture. I see it in the way they talk. Everything about them, there's such a deep assurance.
Right.
And I have the ability to read through falseness. I have a great bullshit filter. Even when people, are acting like, they're peacocking around, it's like, well, you truly don't know
I
who
think
you
the
are.
bullshit filter is huge in the spiritual realm.
Yeah, most definitely, right? Because, if you live in truth, when other people are living in truth also. Like that, well, that does align with physics, creation, everything else. But that's my unique ability. But that took time to learn. That took a lot of looking inward. We look outward, but we have to find that balance of looking inward on ourselves. And a great tool that I used to find whatever that ability is, and this is not to sound morbid, is I've thought a lot about my death. When you consider and contemplate your death with a lot of conscious thoughts.
This is Stoic philosophy.
You ask yourself, how do I want to define the length of my life up to that moment when I am dying?
I love that.
How do I want to define how I feel when I transition out of this realm into another? How do I want to define the relationships and the quality of my interactions? I don't want to die with a regret. I want to die with peace, love, and harmony and know that I gave back to this world in the most positive coexistence possible. And so when I think about that, it's a great deriving factor for me to say, well, who am I really? What is it that truly aligns with who I am and what I should be doing for my true I, not my false ego or how I project myself to the rest of the world? Focusing on your death is not a negative thing because death is just a part of the cycle before going into rebirth again. Think about the heartbeat. It beats, comes to life, stops, and then rebeats again. Or the cycle of the lungs, or the waves of the ocean, all these different things. There's this cycle of, birth, living, death, rebirth, all over, and it just keeps going and going and going. But that sort of focus, that sort of learning helps me continually refine who I am because that death state, the end of this current set of probabilities and learning comes to an end. So I want to make sure that before I get to that point, I continue to have the best interactions with people possible. And there's no reason for me not to be truthful with myself and others because I'm wasting my time and I'm preventing my own evolution and everybody I interact with when I'm not being exactly who I'm supposed to be.
Yes. And there's so many people out there that are living a lie.
Yeah. There's a great majority of people that live a lie. And whether it's influenced by religion, the people around themselves, the material they read that may be false and coercive, that forces them to believe and doesn't force them to have responsibility and to think for themselves. Those are things that cause you to live in that lie. And you get caught up in it and it creates that world of anxiety. I feel no anxiety because I know exactly who I am. I know that when something adversarial or something that could be negative comes to me, I know that this is an obstacle that I need to learn from so I can continue to evolve and continue through with my purpose that I'm here to do. Nothing will ever stop me from that purpose.
I love that. Yes, that's so. Let's summarize it this way, and we'll end the podcast. What is, if you could say, people love this, especially in our Western philosophy.
Yeah.
What is the formula for finding your special gift or ability?
The formula is asking the word why. The formula is deducting. Be the Sherlock Holmes of your spirit. Keep removing all the things that don't need to be there. Michelangelo's formula for creating...
I thought you were going to say Michelob.
Yeah, Michelob Ultra. Michelangelo's formula for creating David, that huge marble sculpture. When the Pope asked him, he's like, how did you do it? He looked at the Pope and said, I just removed everything that wasn't David. And I want our listeners to think about that and understand how that's applicable to absolutely everything about yourself and finding out who you truly are. Your formula is to remove everything that isn't you. Remove all the things that are unnecessary and untruthful. And just keep doing it. Just keep chipping away at it. I don't care if you write a list down or whatever it is, but that's your algorithm.
That's self-awareness in a nutshell.
Yeah, that's exactly what it is in a nutshell.
I love it. I think we're going to help a lot of people. I'm excited. dial in your work. Make sure you're operating in your zone of genius.
Yeah.
You can look this up. If you just type in zone of genius, there'll be a ton of stuff on Google.
Highly recommend reading the book.
Yeah, and I'll put the link in the show notes. I'll put the link of the book.
Super.
Perfect. Thanks, Alex. Oh. Before we end,
Yeah, please tell
let's
me.
thank our sponsors.
Oh, we definitely have to thank our sponsors.
We have Tartle.co.
Tartle.co. It's a place where you can share your data towards causes you care about and get paid to do so. It's nice being paid to share.
Yes.
And you can get started very quickly by going to tartle.co, tartle.co. Please sign up.
And then Quality Mazda. If you're local or if you're in New Mexico, Colorado, Texas,
Yep.
You can purchase a vehicle, great family owned since 1957.
Yep.
The same family's been there, so it's not a big box store where they actually, you could go talk to. I mean, you've gone in there.
I've
you
gone
can talk to the
many
owners.
times. I can speak to what you're saying and the sponsor itself, right?
Right.
They're not there to coerce people into buying the car.
Right.
They're educators that are in there. We want to educate you on the technology of the vehicle, its safety, and all those other
They're
things.
product specialists, yeah. So if you're looking at purchasing a new vehicle or a pre-owned vehicle, Quality Mazda in Albuquerque, New Mexico, you can go to qualitymazdanm.com and tartle.co, sign up. If you're a business owner,
Yep.
you can sign up and not just as a business sell your data, but you can also purchase data.
Purchase data to make quality decisions that are beneficial to humanity. And I think, listen, if you support us and listen to this podcast, I think you should also continue to support efforts around the globe with your data and help support yourself.
I love that. Tartle.co.